Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slapendipity, Hobos of Happy Slappy Town, episode 45. My name is Devon, but you can call me Gibby, and I am here with...
Eric, who you may call Eric.
Now, Eric, I have some news for you.
Okay.
Breaking live here on the podcast.
Oh.
The recent Mega Ball lottery was up to
$1 billion.
$1.1 billion. Now, some guy won the jackpot. It was in California, but there were $3 million winners. There's one in Florida, another one in California, I think, and one in New Jersey.
Okay.
You win the $1 million by getting the 5 numbers, but not the silly little number at the end. So,
right.
you get 5 out of the 6 numbers, and you win your $1 million.
Okay.
I participated in this lottery.
Right.
And that's the news.
That's incredible. I've never heard something more breaking newsying in all of my time.
Yeah, I got 0 of the numbers right, which is kind of like getting them all right, you know? It's like, that's special too. 0% success rate across, I got 3 tickets, like, wow.
I think I saw an anime one time where it was like, you score the perfect 0, that means you must have known the correct answers, which means you actually got 100.
Yeah, I've seen a meme of that too, where it's like they got a 0 on a test, which means they had to know how to get them all wrong. I don't remember what the context was, though.
Me neither. I know he was trying to fail on purpose, but I forget what show or why or...
Well, my question, have you ever played a lottery?
Oh, sure. I've played the little scratch-off ones, and a few times have gotten, like, the Powerball lottery. I don't participate in that as much, because I'm like... At least with the scratch-offs, you can pretend that you're, like, you have a better chance. With the Powerball, it's just like, did you guess 6 numbers? No. Sucks.
Yeah.
Or did you let the computer pick 6 numbers for you?
But you gotta do both. You gotta give yourself over to RNGesus for the pretend numbers, the random numbers, but then you also gotta play, like, your lucky numbers. My thing is, like, I only do it when it gets above, like, $1 billion. And my thought is, like, if the winning $1 billion ticket is my lucky 6 numbers and I didn't play, I think I would kill myself.
Oh my gosh.
I'd be like, $3, I would have won. Those are my exact numbers. How did this happen? It was fate. Yeah, so that's my thing.
But when it hits 100 million and it's your lucky numbers, you're like, whatever.
Well, yeah, because, like, you don't even usually notice it until, like, the news media starts reporting, like, it is reaching $1 billion.
True. Gambling is illegal, except for this one, because...
Because the state runs it.
Yeah.
So, yes, so I did not win the lottery for Christmas, unfortunately.
Well, maybe Santa got you something else.
Santa got me a cool little mini keyboard that only has 10 buttons on it. And so... So, when you're in a video editing program, which is what I do all day, every day, the S key will split a
section
footage. Section, yeah. S is for split. And so 99% of what I do is I hit S to split, and I hit delete to delete the split.
Right.
That's 99% of what I do. S, delete, S, delete, S, delete. On my keyboard, S and delete are on exact opposite ends. And so I have to go S, move my entire arm across the keyboard, delete, and then click my mouse to the next section, and then S, and then delete. So I got this little mini keypad, and I put the S key right next to the delete key. So now I'm just cruising. I'm going tip, 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 tappity tap. 2 fingers each. S, delete, S, delete, S, delete. Oh my god.
Wow.
Santa has increased my productivity by, like, an unmeasurable, infinite amount.
Okay. That's cool.
What did you get from Santa?
Mostly books.
Have you read any of them?
I have.
What did you read?
Some of them were also books that I just kind of have a backlog, and I was like, I should read these. So, I read, I figured I'd expand my, what do you call it? Like mental palette, or whatever. You know, longtime listeners will know I read manga, which is like Japanese comics. And then when I went to Comic-Con, I was like, hey, these Western comics aren't so bad. There should be an industry for them or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I read Sleeping Beauties, which is like the Stephen King retelling of Sleeping Beauty. And it used to be a book, and they like recently adapted it into a comic, and it was a solid okay. Would you like to hear what?
Yeah, I was gonna say, is Stephen King like a writer that you enjoy? Typically,
I haven't consumed a lot of his media. Really, it's just The Shining that I know of. I think I saw like part of The Shawshank Redemption, but I don't remember it.
Okay, so give me a summary. What's this book about?
Okay. There's a virus going around, and the entire world is being shut down because of it.
Interesting. When was this comic book written?
Let's see.
Mm-hmm. While you're talking, actually, I'm going to tease that I also read a book.
Woo! You also read a book?
I also read a book. We'll talk about that when you're done seeing when this
I didn't know you know how to read.
Well, I can't read. That's a SpongeBob reference for you folks out there. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm full of those. It was
also a Harry Potter reference because Tom Felton improvised that line.
I was gonna say, did you know that Tom Felton improvised that? Isn't that quirky?
I watch YouTube shorts sometimes.
I knew that 20 years ago. I don't know how.
Oh.
Probably not 20 years ago. Probably like 10, 15 years ago. Like a fun fact on like ancient Facebook. Maybe Tumblr. It's like, did you know that this line was improvised?
Okay, so I have the book in front of me, and it's not telling me when it came out. But I'm gonna say in the past year or so.
Oh, well, that's stupid then.
Keep in mind, this was also already... So the comic came out in like the past year or so. Mm-hmm. The book it was based off of,
2017.
Yeah.
2017. Pre-pandemic.
Pre-pandemic. So there's this virus going around, and it's only affecting women. And it makes women fall asleep. And whenever they go to bed, they can't wake up ever again because this cocoon wraps around them. And if you try to rip the cocoon off of them, they go into like zombie mode, and they're just extremely violent and will kill anything that they see, and you have no recourse other than to kill them, because they just get in a feral frenzy.
Okay.
So the world...
Women are butterflies. Evil butterflies.
Moths. So as this spreads, like, obviously it makes the news, and then, like, some women try to stay up the entire time. Some women fall asleep, and by the end of the book, only, like, 10%... It lasted 5 days, I think, maybe a week. And, like, only 10% of women never fell asleep. And those are the real ones. I don't know. Not the real ones. Anyway...
Like the homies, they the real ones.
Yeah. They're the ones with insomnia. So, it was a kind of fun read. It was, I mean, it did just remind me a lot of the pandemic, and I was like, interesting. But so then it splits, and, right, the thing about the book, right, that the plot becomes, right, there's, like, the women are all asleep. Men are totally unaffected. They go to bed, they wake up, it's literally whatever. And so it's like, well, what do we do? Like, if there's no women, the human species won't exist, but also, I miss my mom, or my sister, or my daughter. And there's this one weird magic lady who's called Evie, but sometimes she's called Eve. And also huge spoilers for Sleeping Beauties.
I wonder where this is
Stephen
going.
King comic. And she can go to bed and wake up totally normal, but she's a woman. And so she kills some, like, meth dealers or something so she can get herself in jail on purpose. And then the jail's shrink is like, why did you kill these people in cold blood? And she's like, you're special. You're the man. And I'm the woman. And together we will be the world. And he's like, okay, I have my work cut out for me.
I, Officer Adam, have seen enough and I'm going home.
No one's called Adam.
Okay. I was like, I wonder where this is going.
So basically Evie can go to and fro. So it's revealed that the women, when they fall asleep, they enter like a new world, and it's like Earth, but like 100 years later, like nature is reclaiming the Earth, and it's just filled with women, and they're like, this is awesome, and we don't have to worry about reproductive things and, like, our species going extinct because sperm banks were a thing. And we can just make a new world without men until we give birth to boys. But then we can raise them better, because men don't exist here now. And they're there in this new world with their own bodies, I think, because they need light and stuff, but also their bodies are in the old world wrapped up in a cocoon. And so, there's this, Evie explains, right, that A, she's a magic woman, and B, there's this magic tree connecting the two worlds, which Evie is the only one that knows about it, which is why she can go to and from. But, so, if we want the women to go back to the old world, then the shrink from the jail has to protect her from being killed by crazy terrorists who know that she's a magic woman, and then obviously her death would mean women would come back. But that's not the case. She has to live for the women to come back. And he's like, okay, checks out. And then the women learn this, and the women are like, okay, checks out. And then this one woman is like, this is dumb. I'm going to burn this tree down in the new world so that no one can go to or from, because the old world is bad and filled with men, and I don't want to go there, and I'm making the executive decision for the betterment of women here, because they're just misguided if they think they actually want to go back. So then other women find out, and they're like, hey, no. And then this one woman goes to stop her, and then she's like pinning her to the ground, successfully stopping her. And then the lady cop shoots that woman, and the woman that was stopping her from burning the tree that got shot is like, why did you shoot me? I stopped her from burning the tree down. Don't you smell the kerosene? I'm dead now. And the lady cop is like, oh my gosh, was I the bad guy? And no, it's fine. The other lady is unconscious, I guess, from the fight. Shrug.
This harrowing tale of Lady 1 and Lady 2 has me asking a question, which is like...
Yeah.
So obviously it's like, oh, the men are in one place and the women are in the other, blah, blah, blah. But like, this also removes like 50% of the people that society relies upon. Like,
yeah,
that's a lot of teachers and doctors and drivers and like just normal, caregivers.
Yep.
To just like disappear.
Yeah, the world's in chaos.
Okay.
I forget the name of it. They're like the Firelighters, and they're a terrorist gang that just burns women in their cocoons.
Oh, that's
And
horrific. So if you're on the other side, you're just like walking with your buddy whose cocoon is like, miles away in the real world, and then she just catches on fire next to you spontaneously.
She doesn't even catch on fire spontaneously. She just stops existing. She just gone. Just poof.
Well.
And it's like, okay, something happened to Carol. Yeah.
So how's it end? Do they get back together? Or did you not
finish
it yet?
No, I finished it. So Evie tells the women the situation, right? And they're like, okay, the people of this town, in like Dougal or something, I am going to make you guys vote on if you want to go back to the old world or stay in the new world. Whatever your decision, though, it has to be unanimous, and you will be deciding for all of womankind.
People can't even unanimously decide that they enjoy, like, puppies. Like, that's not possible.
And all of the women go, I hate the old world, it sucks and it's dumb, and we're already been in this new world time passes faster, so it's only been 5 days in the old world, but it's been like, I don't know, a month in the new world, and they're like, we already have running electricity and water and blah, blah, blah.
I was going to say, hey, women listening to this, do you hate the modern world so much that you'd like to live in the jungle and there's no men? And so, like, you have to, like,
well, no, it's
yourself
different because civilization was already there, and they had women electricians and teachers and nurses, so they just built off of the scraps of the old world. It's fine.
Yeah. I have a feeling that the minority of women would prefer that, as opposed to, as this story seems to be implying, the majority.
So all of the women go, yeah, it's rough in the old world, but I miss my father, or I miss my brother, or I miss my husband, or I miss my son. I'm sorry. I miss my brother a little. I miss my father a little. I miss my husband a little. But what I miss most of all is my son. So they all decide to go back to the old world. All of the cocoons fade away, and women are back. And it ends with, reflecting on, like, what we did and who we are, and it's the like lady cop narrating, and she's like, all of this stuff happens, we're reverting back to how we were, and maybe we can all be a little bit better, and maybe I should be better, because if that woman wasn't black, maybe I wouldn't have shot her immediately.
What?
Maybe if I was white, or if she was white, I would have hesitated and let her explain the situation. And then it ends.
Okay, just tell him on yourself there.
And I go, okay, I get it. Racism is a thing, and it's important that we're not racist. And that's good, book. We didn't talk about racism at all before, though. Maybe I'm just missing it. I don't know. I think... the book is a little weird, where it's trying to play, not even, like, it's trying to be progressive and, like, all this stuff, but then it falls back on tropes, right? So, like, or not even tropes, I don't know, things. So, like, one of the critiques that I've heard in more, like, book spaces is, like, a lot of villains tend to be, like, big men who are black or Hispanic or just a colored person of color man who's big and just swinging wildly and is filled with hate. And then this book's the villain is a black man swinging wildly filled with hate because he misses his wife and daughter, and it's like, okay, one of the critiques we have, we're just going to lean into that. Except at the end where he meets the magic woman and is like, wow, I see the errors of my ways. I also think it's super lame that one woman was like, I'm gonna burn down this tree, and I'm making an executive decision on the good of all womankind because they don't know any better. And that's a point of conflict. And then another lady is like, you can't decide that for all of womanhood. And then Evie goes, so, group of people, I'm going to make you vote for all of womanhood. and they go, okay.
Fam, have you ever tried to be so progressive that you, as a man, create a fictional story in which all women agree on something?
Well. Yeah, it's a little, I don't know.
And what did you... Sorry, I forget the beginning of the story. Were you gifted this book, or did you buy this book?
I bought this book because I was
What made you interested? Just because it was a Stephen King graphic novel?
So this is one of the books I actually got from Comic-Con, and the lady was so proud of her work. She was one of the art people on it. And I was like, oh yeah, you're really passionate about this, and I'm curious. So, it's enough reason for me, apparently.
Wow.
And part of now, like, because I didn't know anything about the book, and she was super proud about it, and she was also like, you should really read it. And now that I've finished the book, I'm like, did she see that I, a man? She was like, this man needs to be convinced of women good. I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like it has pretty bad reviews, so yeah. I'm not entirely sure that it was like... If they were supposed to... Which, to me...
Yeah.
Right, obviously every piece of art, every fictional work is going to have some moral or message, and oftentimes those are philosophical or political, or sometimes both. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to write something that is sort of intentionally saying something provocative about, political or cultural topics, mm-hmm. but what you create is just objectively bad, then doesn't that inherently make your own side look dumb?
Well, but who's to say it's objectively bad?
This
could be someone's favorite book.
Everyone who's giving this book really bad ratings on Goodreads.
Yeah. There's a funny little detail, right, where it's in the beginning when they're explaining the magic and stuff, and Evie is talking to the shrink, and the shrink is like, boy, I'm sure lucky I'm a man with my XY chromosomes to prevent me from being a cocoon. And she goes, you stupid man, it's not because of science. Anyone that identifies with a woman is a woman. Trans people, non-binary, two-spirit. The tree knows. And I just think that's funny to just be like, shut up, people. It's a tree and the tree knows.
Huh.
But,
well, it surely was a story.
It surely was a story. It also doesn't help that, like, it's a book being adapted to a comic, because it inherently takes up less space. So I'm sure there were things they had to cut, which maybe explained it better. I realized something interesting, having mostly read manga, where it's serialized, right? This was a graphic novel. Most of what I've read is serialized, and so they can be, like, more deliberate with how they convey actions and movements. But reading this, I was just like, wait, where are we? How did we get here? What's this spinning motion trying to indicate? It was just more confusing.
Well, is most of the manga that you read in black and white?
Yes.
Yeah, so that those typically, like, they use their lines in more purposeful ways. Whereas comic book artists see it as, like, this is, like, each panel is a painting. Mm-hmm. And so it's like a moment in time that is paused and that you're seeing. Anyway, we did a whole episode about conveying motion in comics. That was earlier. We talked about that forever ago.
I'm just saying, now that I'm reading a graphic novel that is, like, not a serialized thing, it's interesting to compare notes with first-hand experience.
You should read Watchmen.
Okay. maybe.
And if I can think of other good graphic novels, I will suggest them. I know, because obviously Watchmen's one of my favorites, and I happen to own it, so the next time we see each other, maybe I can lend it to you.
Whoa.
Wow.
That's
I was
crazy.
watching a video that was talking about, like, the comic book industry, and how all of the, you see these headlines all the time, like, Demon Slayer just outsold Marvel and DC combined.
Yes.
One Japanese manga has outsold all of the US comics, blah, blah, blah. Those numbers are incredibly misleading. Like, downright wrong. So, I think it's, yes, manga and American superhero comic books, Marvel and DC, are both the same medium in that they are pictures contained in a book and then people talk in word bubbles, right? Like, those are technically, like, the same kind of thing.
Okay.
But if you expand graphic novels in America outside of just Marvel and DC's superhero line, and you include things like Captain Underpants, or Bone, or not Diary of a Wimpy Kid, but like those similar things where, like, these are self-contained graphic novels sold to sort of resemble normal books, but they are graphic novels. They are little cartoons that talk. The American graphic novel industry is huge. It's Marvel and DC that suck at selling their weekly comic books. Batman and Spider-Man aren't selling, but Captain Underpants and Bone, those are flying off the shelf constantly, and those numbers in America are very similar to manga sales in Japan.
Well, I mean, I guess that depends on the headline you read, right? If they're saying Demon Slayer has outsold all of Batman and Spider-Man, then checks out. If they go, it outsold all of American comics, then yeah, I'd be curious on your definitions as you've put it.
Yeah, people
But
on
I wouldn't
Twitter
be
like
too
to
surprised.
make like grand sweeping statements like the manga, American comics needs to, adapt more manga stuff. Like, maybe, if we don't put color in our comics, they can come out faster. Or if we allow single authors to write books, then that'll be better than having, like a committee of people who decide what happens in the X-Men. But it's like, no, because those sales numbers are just, like, not accurate. I don't know. I thought it was interesting. Graphic novels. Yeah, they're a thing.
We read in this podcast.
On this podcast, this is Book Review Podcast. You come in here from my second channel where I just read books. This channel also read books. Wow.
So, yeah, that was yeah.
Yeah, I also read a horror book. I guess that yours wasn't a horror book, but yours was a Stephen King book. Yeah. It was like inspired by Stephen King. It reminds me of the book I read reminds me of like a Stephen King book. It's like a deep psychological horror.
Yeah, with
so
women
it's about
deciding their fate.
Yeah, so it's about this waitress.
Oh.
I think all there's like 3 characters in this book and they're all women. No, her boss is a man, I guess. Okay, so there's a woman. Parents killed when she's 11. Raised in the foster care system. The foster care system sucks. She has to live under this like terrible, her foster dad is like an army drill sergeant and like runs their foster home. Like there's a line where it's like, you don't get to pee until 7:37 a.m. because like that's your designated urination time. And he woke them up with these like loud alarm sounds running through the house. So again, ran foster home like military.
Okay.
So she's there and she's like 17 and she meets another foster girl, joins her. I don't remember her name. We're going to call her Hannah. So main character lady is like 17 and she meets this like older man, like probably like 23. It's like early 20s. So he's like, come and be with me. And she's like, oh my God, yes, because literally anything is better than being with this terrible foster family. So the moment that she turns 17, he goes, grabs her, whisks her off to Europe. He's like the son of some rich guy, so he's like super rich and wealthy. And she's this, poor orphaned foster care girl. And they party around Europe, and then they immediately get engaged, and then they're going to get married, and then they get married. And she keeps in touch with one of her foster sisters from the foster home with the mean jerky man. So she's like living it up, like, oh my god, I'm married to this rich man who literally whisked me away from the terrible life. This is great. He cheats on her.
Okay.
They get divorced. She signed a prenup basically saying, like, hey, I'm poor and you're rich, so if we get divorced for literally any reason, I'm not going to take half of your money because, like, you went into the relationship rich and I went into it poor. And she's like, I don't, like, it doesn't matter that I'm signing this because he's never going to leave me, right? Ha ha ha. So she is now high school dropout, living in an apartment. The ex-husband, like, paid for her apartment so that she wouldn't be on the streets. But alone, 23 years old, living in an apartment, never had a job, high school dropout, spent the last 4 years, married to this guy who then, like, leaves her for a younger woman. Absolutely destitute, hates life. The walls in her apartment are, like, really, really thin. And so her neighbor, who's, like, this elderly woman, like, wakes her up every morning by, like, singing songs, but, like, nonsense songs. So, like, she'll wake up and she'll just hear her neighbor in the next room being like, bacon, it's bacon time, I love bacon, the sun's gonna rise. Right, just, like, nonsense. So, then she'll get up, and then she has to go outside, and then she goes to the diner that she works at across the street, and, like, it's just, like, a normal job, right? Like, she likes her job, but at the same time, it's like, oh, you're a waitress at a diner, and it's the dinner rush, and the dinner rush sucks. It's a 24-hour diner, so it's like, oh, sometimes you get the midnight to 7 a.m. shift.
And then she has to pee at 7:37.
Yeah. So it's just like, life sucks. She only has one friend. It's her ex-foster sister. And she's, like, an actor, so she lives in this, like, house that 9 other actors live in, and, like, they're all their own little rooms, but, like, one of the guys, like, crashes on the couch. And sometimes they get acting gigs, but most of the time they're in, like, the improv comedy theater on the other side of town. So main character lady will, like, interact with her old foster sister best friend pretty often. But most of her life is just wake up, go to work, go for a jog. Just, like existing. One day at a time, existing. So because she's so poor, she really loves to go, like, thrifting and, like, to garage sales and stuff. So there's a contrived scene where she wakes up and her alarm didn't go off. Oh no, her alarm's broken. And then she goes to work and the boss is like, if you're late one more time, then we gotta get rid of you, missy. And she's like, oh, humbug, I'm so sorry. So next day is her day off. She's jogging, going for a jog, sees garage sale, goes to the garage sale. Garage sale lady has a pet chihuahua. She likes the pet chihuahua. And they're selling a whole bunch of stuff. And she's going and she's, leafing through old magazines and video games and, dolls and toys and blankets. Now, she was very much like, she really, really, really wanted to have a kid, like a baby, right? She was like 22, married to a rich man. She's like, I want to have a baby. And it's going to be a baby girl. And her name's going to be Emma. And I'm going to love my daughter. And then they got divorced. And so now she's like, I'm supposed to have a baby by now. I want a baby. And so she's looking at all, like, the dolls and the baby toys. And it's like, these should have been my baby's toys. So she's leafing through, and she finds a little doll. And the doll's name is Ella. And she's like, Ella, that's kind of like Emma. Is this a sign? And she looks at the doll. And the doll is actually an alarm clock. So it's like a normal plush doll, but then, like, its stomach is like a clock. And it's also ancient, right? It's like a 40-year-old, like, late 1900s, little tchotchke thing. So she's like, oh, can I have this? And then she buys it from the garage sale person and her little chihuahua. And she brings it home, and she has the night shift. So she has to, like, wake up at 1:35 p.m. The name of the story is 1:35. So she has to wake up at 1:35 to then, like, go into work for the 3 o'clock p.m. to 3 o'clock a.m. shift, So she sets the alarm, and then she goes to bed, and then she wakes up, and it's from an angry call from her boss. And he's like, where are you? It's 5. And she's like, oh no, my new alarm that I just bought that is ancient didn't go off and is clearly broken. Whoops. So she grabs the alarm clock and she storms downstairs and she's like, I'm going to get fired. And she throws in the dumpster outside and then she goes to work. And the boss is like, this is your last chance. I never want to hear this from you again. And she's like, blah, blah, blah. And she does her work day and she's all sad. And she goes home and she's exhausted, and she gets in bed, and she falls asleep, and she's awoken by a loud blaring sound, a loud buzzing sound. It's just like the sound that her ex-foster dad used to wake them up back when she was in the bad foster care place. A loud buzzing, bleeping sound. And she's like, what's going on? She looks around, and she looks at her old alarm clock, and it says that it's 1:35 a.m. And she looks out the window, and then the sound is seemingly coming from the dumpster outside where she had dumped the Ella doll. And she's like, oh, I'm stupid. I set the alarm for 1:35 a.m., not 1:35 p.m. It's not the clock's fault. I'm just an idiot. So eventually it stops, and she wakes up, and then she does her day, and she goes out and checks the dumpster. But she can't find it. There's just like so much stuff piled up in the dumpster that she literally can't leaf through it to find the doll. And she's like, well, I guess I'll check like tomorrow or whatever. And then so she goes to work and she goes back to bed, and then she wakes up the next day, 1:35 a.m. But there's not an alarm going off outside in the dumpster. It's like there's scratching. There's scratching coming from between the walls.
I hate this.
And she's like, what the heck? And so then she wakes up, and then she goes to work, and then she comes back, and she's like, oof. And she goes to bed, and like she's getting home at like midnight, right? Because like that's when her shift ends. And she goes to bed, and then she's woken up at 1:35 because the latch to her door opened. And so then she hears her door close, and she hears it latch again, and she jumps up and turns on her lamp and looks around and looks at the clock, and it's 1:35, and she's like, what the heck? So at this point, she's like getting like 1 hour of sleep a night, and she's like barely hanging on because she's so like sleep deprived. And then she'll just be sitting there, 5 a.m, trying to eat a bowl of cereal, and then her neighbor will wake up and start singing about like the sunrise and the blah blah blah, and she's like, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. And so then next morning, 1:35 a.m., she's just hearing weird noises from the ceiling, like there's something crawling on her ceiling, and she turns on the light and looks up, and then it sounds kind of like it scuttles like over the ceiling, like into her neighbor's room. And she's like, oh my god, my neighbor, who like has a bunch of knickknacks in her apartment, she took the doll. That's why it's still going off at 1:35 in the morning. It's going off next door. So she waits for the neighbor to leave for the day, and then breaks into her apartment and looks around. She never really like talked to her neighbor. She knows her by name. And this lady is like obsessed with like Japanese culture. So she's like paintings and those little like wooden folding boards that they use as like doors. And like she like takes off her shoes at the front door and stuff like that. But she's not Japanese herself. And she goes and she's rummaging through all of her stuff under her bed in boxes. She finds out that the lady's like son died in a fire, and like her husband's long dead, and so she's just like really old and really sad. And she's like, oh, I guess that like she has a sad past or something. So then the old lady comes home. So she leaves the apartment, waits for the old lady to come home. Old lady comes home. She goes and talks to the old lady, and she's like, tee-hee, have you happened to see this doll? JK unless. And the old lady's like, I don't know about that, missy. I never buy things secondhand, because sometimes when you buy things secondhand, the past of the object has rubbed off on it, and so any evil that was like done around it is imbued into the object, and so I would never bring something like that into my home because it could like come after you. And the main character's like, oh man, she probably thinks that because like her husband and son died horrifically, and like that's sad. Oh no. So I guess she doesn't have the doll. And now she's like, oh no, but the doll is probably like haunted or something. Keep in mind, the book is making it very, very clear that she hasn't had sleep in like a week at this point. So she has lunch with her friend. And she goes to her friend, and she's like, hey, remember I told you that I bought that doll? And the friend's like, yeah, it was really old and it's really valuable. You should like sell it on eBay. And the main character's like, well, I threw it away in the dumpster. And the foster sister's like, yeah, you told me you threw it away in the dumpster. You shouldn't have done that. And the main character's like, did you by any chance like retrieve it from the dumpster to then try to sell yourself on eBay, and you didn't tell me because like you made a lot of money from it, so like you actually saved it from being dumpstered? And the best friend's like, no, why would I do that? You sound crazy. And then the main character's like, no, you're crazy. I don't want to talk to you anymore. I hate you. And so then like it negatively impacts their relationship. So now like they're not talking anymore because they're both accusing each other of being crazy. So now she's like, the haunted doll's after me. My best friend's in on it. I can't do this. So she goes to her boss, and her boss is like, hey, do you want to work the night shift? Because you keep like oversleeping. And she's like, yes. Oh my God, I'll be at work around people at 1:35 in the morning. So the doll can't get me.
True.
So she's at work, and she's in the back, and she's in the freezer, and she turns around, and she sees the doll, like, standing next to, like, the fry cook man, like, standing next to, like, the hot oil, and she's like, oh no, it's gonna hurt him, and, like, she rushes over and, like, starts crying. The fry oil man is like, what are you talking about? Nothing's happening. And then, like, the next day, she's, like, serving one of her regulars, who's, like, this old lady, and then she turns around, and on one of the bar stools, one of the counter stools, is the doll, and she can tell because it has, like, this blue dress on, and so the blue fabric is, like, sitting there. It's just sitting there watching her, and she's like, no, and then she grabs off the chair and throws it on the ground, and everyone looks around at her, and she looks down, but it was actually just the old lady's blue purse.
I thought you were going to say it was a real baby for a second. I was going to be like, ooh.
And they're like, you're going crazy. We can't have you having these disruptions here anymore. You're fired.
Oh, no.
So she goes home, and she's lying in bed. And then she hears the siren outside, and the crawling in the walls, and the tickety-tackers. And she's like, I need to leave. So she gets in her car, and she drives across the city, and she goes to a motel. And she checks into the motel, and she goes, and she's like, I am now free. For the first time in, like, 2 weeks, I can finally get some sleep, and once I'm done resting, I'll figure out, like, I'll apologize to my friend, and I'll get my job back. I just need to sleep. And so she lies down in the bed and falls asleep. And then at 1:35 in the morning, like, the windowsill cracks open, and the fan turns on, and there's just, like, this weird sound, and she turns on the lights and looks around, and, like, there's no one there, and she's like, it followed me. Maybe the doll was, like, in my trunk, and I drove it across town. Oh my god. So she leaves all her stuff, gets in her car, drives away, abandons the car on the side of a highway, starts running through the woods, eventually stumbles across this, like, large construction site where they're building an office complex.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes to the construction site, and she finds that they're laying down, like, the air ducts for, like, the interior of the building. And so she crawls up one of the air ducts, and she crawls through it, and as she's going, it's getting tighter and tighter and tighter, because air ducts are not, actually Bruce Willis sized. So she's crawling through the air ducts, and, she's really slender and really thin, and she can just kind of hear, like, footsteps coming in after her, like a tick-tock, like a little doll walking in after her. And so she crawls herself further and further down the air ducts, and then there's, like, it goes down a little bit, and then it goes straight, and then there's, like, a 90-degree drop, and so she goes down, she's going further and further, and she goes in just far enough that she can't move, and she can't back up, because she's right after one of the 90-degree drops, and she can't go forward because it's too tight, and she can't go back, and she's like, finally, it can't reach me, it's literally impossible for it to get to me, I can finally rest. Forever. The end.
Oh. What?
And then presumably she's stuck in there and she dies.
Yeah. Huh. What's up with that?
It's psychosis. But it's just scary being like, the thing is coming for you, you know?
Yeah. I mean,
real
the night that I heard a latch for my door go, I would have done the motel.
But you had to be at work the next day.
I heard a latch to my front door open and close. Nah. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
It was fine. It's not my favorite of the Five Nights at Freddy's novels that I've been reading. But it was definitely one of them.
It definitely was one of them.
Now you might be wondering, what's that to do with Five Nights at Freddy's? And the answer is literally nothing.
Oh. So wait, it is or isn't a Five Nights at Freddy's book?
Oh, it is. It is.
Oh, okay.
But what's it have to do with the story? Nothing.
Well, why does the story even start with her in the child care system and the husband and get divorced? Like, you could have just picked up from, I live in a crappy apartment and my neighbor sucks and my job is whatever.
Yeah, and like the alarm clock doll is haunted because animatronics? Question mark?
Except maybe not. It was
maybe
all in
not
her
even.
head, maybe?
She might just be sleep deprived? Question mark? But yeah, that's the book I read this week.
Wow. I can tell you about some other books I read.
What other books did you read?
I read... I'm so sorry, I don't know how to pronounce this. Meschugge? Meschugge? It's a Yiddish word.
Oh, okay.
And the book is called Meschugge, The Madman's Maze, and it's published by Fair Square Graphics, and they like help develop and publish like stories from people in like underrepresented cultures and stuff. So this comic is about a Jewish woman in Copenhagen who was like born in America and is Jewish, but also there's a mass wave of immigrants coming from like the world, like that are like, you know, like real quote unquote, or like more quote unquote Jewish than her, because there's like a war or something, famine happening in the other part of the world. And so there's this influx of immigrants, and she works as like this is like in the 1920s or something. So she's like working as a scribe for the police department, and her boss is like, hey, you're Jewish? Go into the Jewish ghettos and ask around town about this weird, like, murder events. And she's like, okay, I'm Jewish, but I'm not Jewish like that. And he's like, well, Jewish enough, right? So she goes and gets there, and the immigrants in the ghettos are like, you're not a real Jew like us. And that's kind of a lot of the part of the theming. And then like she just goes around solving or attempting to solve these murder cases, and like spoilers for it, but I would recommend you read it yourself. It has very pretty art as well, and it's got like a Lovecraft inspiration. I'm like, is she crazy or is the world crazy? I don't know. But basically there's this like based on like Yiddish religion and like mythos, maybe religion at least, like the murderer is killing women and like inscribing symbols onto their forehead related to a ritual to like, you know, bring down heaven or gain powers or typical stuff. And so she like, as she digs more and more into like this like weird ritual that she like is part of her culture, but like she doesn't know about it, but now she's learning about her culture. She like goes further and further into madness. It was very fun. Much better than Sleeping Beauties.
Mm-hmm.
And also the police are corrupt.
What other stuff did you do for Christmas?
Well, I visited my family, my extended family. And, you know, we had our 7 fishes, as I've talked about. We, you know, played some games, as you do. You know, good stuff. Good, nice, wholesome family fun. And Christmas Day, just kind of hung out, enjoyed the vibes. Had some, you know, open your stockings, open your presents, have some hot chocolate, eat some nuts. Just that. The good stuff. And now in the Oh?
Did you have any satsumas?
Satsumas?
Yeah.
What's a satsuma?
That's a great question, because my mother and I had a 2-hour-long conversation about this. So apparently, satsumas are what British people call mandarin oranges.
Oh, like the Terry's orange chocolate thing.
Yeah, so those orange chocolate things, apparently those are much more common in the UK,
Yeah.
where like they associate like satsumas with Christmas time.
Yeah.
So it's like in the same family as like tangerines and clementines and whatever. But yeah, so they call a certain species of mandarin oranges satsumas because it comes from like that place in Japan, I guess. Satsuma, Japan. Um, so me and my mother watching Taskmaster, the British show. We've talked about this before, and they just refer to them as satsumas. And so we'll be watching, and we have no idea what that means. One of the tasks was like, we have put a bunch of pieces of clothing on a laundry line. Find the one that has a satsuma in it.
Satsuma in it, yeah.
And we're just like,
good task.
What the heck is a satsuma? Like, what? And we look it up, and it's like, oh, like, and we couldn't figure out if it was just a certain type of mandarin orange that we'd never heard of before, or if it was just like the British word for a mandarin orange, because they also call they call eggplants aubergines. Which is literally just like an eggplant, which comes from, and I know that because I speak a little French, and that's you say aubergine in France. That's French for eggplants. Like I knew that. So I'm like, okay, is this like an eggplant situation where they just have a different word for the same thing, or is it technically different the way that like tangerines and clementines are technically different? And I couldn't find the answer. But what I did learn is that satsumas are very important for UK Christmases. And so it's Christmas, yes. And so I wanted to talk about this. Did you have a satsuma for Christmas?
No, why would I? I'm not British.
That's true. Did you have one of the chocolate oranges for Christmas?
No, why would I? I'm not British.
Well, I mean, I've seen those before just as being like a normal candy thing.
Nah. Now I got, I don't know. What did I get? The like, dessert food, candy food I got was like Ferrero Rocher.
Those are good.
Those are very good.
Yeah.
Love them. How did you spend your holiday?
I had Christmas with my mom, and then I had Christmas with my dad. Wow.
Did you enjoy it? Did you have fun?
We had joy.
Did you have pizza?
Fun. We had seasons in the sun. Yes, yeah, of course. Pizza is the most perfect Christmas and Christmas Eve dinner. That's what you're supposed to have. That's what you're supposed to have. Because fish is disgusting.
I mean, you don't have to have it. We also had pizza bagels and mozzarella sticks. And
that's fair, then.
Pigs in a blanket.
That's not fair anymore.
I mean, we also had shrimp parm. That was like
disgusting.
One of our fish. It's Parmesan. Parmesan style of cooking makes anything better.
I disagree.
You think Parmesan cannot improve on any food?
I think there's nothing you can do to improve on shrimp because it's disgusting. You're just eating... It's just water bugs. You're just eating water bugs.
But you're eating it with like sauce and cheese on it.
Whole water bugs with like all the guts and stuff inside. Like disgusting.
No, you take the guts and stuff out.
No, you're still eating them.
What?
When you just eat a shrimp, you cut the head off, but all this other stuff is still in there.
No, you take it out.
No.
Yeah.
Anyway, disgusting. Eating water bugs. Gross. Oh, well, you're eating sauce and cheese with it. You know what else you can eat sauce and cheese with? Like, freaking, like, bread. Spaghetti. Just bread. Zucchini noodles. Literally anything that's not a bug.
Listen, you have raviolis on Christmas Day.
Raviolis are great.
And that's where you get your pasta.
Yeah, pasta's great. Well, this has been a great episode of Christmas Book Club. Hope you guys look forward to the next episode of Book Clubs Are Us.
Yeah, we should.
Where I try to sneak in more Five Nights at Freddy's stories, because they give me. I feel like I know that like literally my entire channel is like talking about those stories, but sometimes I feel like I just need to talk to like a normal person and be like, "This is what happened in the book I just read. This is weird, right?"
It was weird, except also not really. Feels like kind of traditional horror tropes and stuff.
Spooky, though. You got spooked when the latch unlatched.
Well, yeah, because I mean, the latch being unlatched was spooky because a doll did it. If a human did it, I'd be like, oh, you're robbing me? Cool, whatever. But if a doll is unlatching your latch, that it could want anything. You can't reason with that.
Like Chucky.
Like Chucky. Well, join us on our next book club episode for more book club talk.
We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.